with Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So I'd like to start with the minutes from the last meeting of January 27th, 2020. There were some corrections. Do you want to note what the corrections are?
Yeah, there were corrections to the budget planning.
The dates for the budget planning.
The correction to the 24th, and then it was March.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me. Okay, thank you. Yeah, it was March 24th at 6 p.m. for the.
April.
Yes. March. No.
February.
Yeah,
February 24th.
And then March 9th.
9th.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, then on the 31st was going to be the final, the tentative date, and then April 27th is when the budget is going to be adopted. So that was just, it was just the 24th and then the 9th that had to be changed.
Great.
Thank you.
So pending those corrections, may I have a motion to accept the meetings? Okay, Karen, and may I have a second? Mark? I'll give it to Mark Doniker. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Motion carries. This time, I'd like to open it up for public comment. So if you would stand and state your name and where you're from. Seeing no people standing at this time, we will go to the report from the building inspector, who is just in the nick of time arrived. So,
Who's without power, so we got here.
yes, apologies. Thank you, Bob.
Sure. I'm sure everybody has a copy of the report, but anyway. Members of the village board, in order to update you on the building department activities for the last year, 2019, I'd like to offer the following summary. There were a total of 56 building permits in the village of Speculator in 2019. In comparison, there were 51 permits issued in the village in 2018. The permits issued were as follows. There were 14 permits for new residential buildings. Of these, 5 were for single-family dwellings, with 2 being renewals, and 9 were for garages, storage buildings, sheds, or camps. 2 of the 9 permits were renewals. 4 permits were for new commercial buildings. 2 were for new guest housing units at Camp of the Woods. 1 for a new bunkhouse at Deerfoot Lodge, and 1 for a cabin at Oak Mountain Ski Area for the ski patrol. 6 permits for additions. These permits include adding or enclosing an existing space to increase living space. Of these, only 1 was a renewal, 4 were residential, and 2 were commercial. 18 permits for alterations. These permits include structural changes to a building, the complete change of a system, or upgrades to existing systems. Of these, 6 permits were renewals, 2 were for commercial properties. There's only 1 permit for a septic system or repairs to a septic system, 2 permits for wells, 6 permits for demolition work, 4 permits for new decks or porches, no permits for solid fuel burning devices, and 1 pool permit. In addition, there were 12 certificates of compliance issued and 5 certificates of occupancy issued. The certificates of occupancy issued were as listed as follows. Kristen Farrell for a 4-bedroom single-family dwelling. Camp of the Woods for Rocky Point Ridge staff housing units. Camp of the Woods for Sierra E to J, 2 new duplex guest housing cabins replacing the old Tantels. Camp of the Woods for Ottawa Cabin, a 3-bedroom guest cabin. And Deborah Jorgensen for a new 2-car garage and storage space above. The 12 certificates of compliance issued were for various projects ranging from the additions to alterations, making sure that compliance to New York Building State Codes was adhered to. There was no stop work orders issued in the village, no fire department notices received by this office for 2019. There was 1 written complaint filed by a resident which was addressed, and another is still awaiting a court action. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask.
All right. Are there any questions for Bob?
Central.
No? Are we on track for 2020?
We started off slow.
Okay,
There's a lot of stuff still going on, so,
okay, good,
but it'll pick up, I'm sure.
Terrific.
Got a lot of inquiries.
terrific, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, now, Ed Sharpeau, water and wastewater update.
I'm gonna start with the water report. Monthly report's been sent out, February samples were done last week. FEMA reporting, we had a write-up coming from Brendan in regards to the water main that's exposed under the bridge on Route 30.
Terrific.
That needs to be addressed and fixed. The fix would be to directional drill under the river and put a new line in.
What does it mean to directional drill?
They have this machine that basically just bores underneath the river and a pipe follows it.
Nice,
And we could actually do that with, like water services. If we had the main on one side of the road, and we could do that as well.
great,
We'll know more about that when the time comes. Hopefully FEMA works with us on that. Tank site in the well building have been cleared of trees for this ice storm, once again. Along with that, we get the trees and then we can't plow it, and then it takes us twice as long to plow it when we have to finally do it. So we got that all taken care of today. Continuing to check phosphate and chlorine through the system. We did Camp of the Woods and Village readings. As of now, I've only had one call for concern. I have to check back with him this week sometime to see what his meter reads. More than likely, he has a toilet that's leaking or something along those lines. It's not, to them it's a lot of water, to the customers it is, but in my eyes, it's not really a lot of water, so we'll see how that plays out. I'm still reviewing local law 4. We cleared hydrants on Saturday. Friday was kind of a mess, and then the power outages, I had to go and make sure I had power, then the power came back on. We originally were gonna do it that night, Friday night, when there was no traffic. But Lenny and I got them done in 4 hours on Saturday.
terrific.
We're gonna have to go out and do them again. Expenditures were minimal, and then, once again, clear hydrants, tank site. I'm working on the budget for 20 and 21. I'll continue to work with Crystal and we'll get that taken care of the best we can. Lenny and I put new brakes and rotors on the Ranger. And then previous meeting I said, this is for both water and wastewater, I said I was gonna order LEDs for the water and wastewater plant, but I think it'd be better to wait for the next budget as this goes till 2023 through OGS. Then I can work with Roger too and see what he needs for lighting, and we can just put one big order in instead of having to do multiple orders. And then I've changed, as of the last meeting, I said I was gonna be gone for 2 weeks. I've changed this to at least a week. We'll play it by ear because we have a lot going on, and you know, having reports and stuff that need to be done for March and the budget and everything, so. No, I know, and if I have to come in for a couple hours to do something, I will, and then I'll go home or whatever. We'll just see how, play it by ear. I'm on the wastewater side now. I've done January and February DMR and speedies. Normally you wouldn't have 2 of them in one reporting month, but I'm trying to get ahead for when I'm going to be gone. I'm also working on the annual land application report, which is due March 1st. It's 90% done. It's just samples that were taken from the biosolids and from the soil. And then that's all put into a spreadsheet that I have on Excel, and it just gives you how long the site life is for that application. application. We applied for a hauler's permit, which I was supposed to do in October. We were really busy and I set it aside and forgot about it. But I called them and they had a new application form anyway, so I refilled that out and we sent that in.
How long does that take to turn around?
That is already, we should have it within the next couple of
Oh,
weeks.
great.
I added a truck because last year we had a problem with the old truck. I tried to save us money by only having one truck, and then we had a problem with that truck, so I added the other truck on. I think it's going to be $375 for that permit, something along those lines. Our standby generator ran well. We had to add coolant to the one at the waters, the tank, or well building, but everything went well. The normal stuff. I'm working on the budget, obviously. Expenditures were minimal. Upgrade, well, I'll save that for last, actually. DEC, I had a meeting with DEC in regards to our speedies permit. I went over to Warrensburg, sat down with Rob Streeter and Sarah Latessa, and I also was on a phone call with Albany. We were just reviewing what our permit was going to look like, and my concerns, questions, they just wanted to show me what I was going to be getting when it's received by the village. So in the next couple weeks, sometime along those lines, we will receive something from DEC in regards to the speedies permit change, and we will need to do a legal notice. I think it's for 30 days in our newspaper, which now is only the Hamilton County Express. That allows the public to make comments and the village and myself to make comments in regards to those changes that will be made.
Did we have any clarity with the phosphorus and the chloride and?
We do, but
Any
I don't
additional
believe
things?
I'm supposed to discuss any of that
Okay.
until the public notice comes out.
That's fine.
At least not on our future, they say.
Yep.
Once that comes out, and then people can make comments whether they do, and we will, and, we'll have 30 days, so I think I'll have a meeting before then.
Oh, so we'll be able to respond to DEC with their speedies?
Yeah, so anybody, they'll basically, this notice will allow you to, I think it'll have a link or something to go to the website to look at what's gonna be modified on our speedies permit, and the dates in which we have to comply, and so on and so forth. Obviously, we know one is disinfection, we are well aware of that, that's 2024, and then the other ones as well. I don't see any huge concerns in regards to it, it's just a little bit more costly for sampling every month,
And,
which I've budgeted.
and they would tell us then, or do you know how quickly we would have to comply to the new speedies testing? As far as the testing goes, not the disinfection they give us time
No,
for that.
originally I would have 12, I would originally have 12 months to, figure it out before we would be, fined, should I say, or maybe not fined, I don't know. But I actually discussed this with him the other day, and I think he's going to change it to 36 months. That gives us a little longer to get everything figured out, but everything's pretty minimal. I think it'll be perfectly fine.
Hey,
Yes,
your haulage permit, is that DEC or DOT?
it is DEC, yep. That's just so, because we're hauling a, biocide.
Biohazard or?
It's not a hazardous material, but anything along those lines, even the garbage has to have a permit to haul garbage, so it's kind of the same idea. And then the last thing I want to discuss is a change order, which you guys all have in front of you.
And I apologize, I received this at about 5 minutes to 5 this evening.
And actually, I called Ed from Roselle to get an update for the meeting so I can discuss where we're going and when things are gonna happen. And he was still expecting to see the change order, so he called, I said, you need to call Brendan and figure that out. So he called Brendan, and now you have a change order in front of you. And I also, on a side note, I talked to Ed from Roselle, and he wants to get the new drive units in March-ish. He needs to do a test pit for the pump station, just to make sure the AC, we know the size of the AC pipe, because there's so many different sizes, and they have everything they need, so once they dig, it just goes in and it's done quickly. And then he was asking me, well, when can I switch over so I can do the inside tank? And I said, if it thaws tomorrow, we can't do anything in March. So it's all based on when our spring thaws, because of the I&I issues we have. Because I'll need both plants, or more than likely. Hopefully we don't, but worst case scenario. So as for this change order, this came about because in discussion of the original pump designs and pump station, the flight rep had told us about these newer style pumps, which are called concertor pumps. Originally, we were going to put VFDs in the pump station with the same type of pumps that are there. This would have allowed us to have more of a constant flow during times of high flows. So the plant isn't getting a huge flow and then it's turning off, and a huge flow and turning off. This really helps the plant run better. So the reasoning for these newer style pumps is the VFDs are built right into the pump itself, and they can actually run as a 2 horsepower pump or a 10 horsepower pump, a 5 horsepower pump, whereas the ones we would have purchased would have been just specifically 10 horsepower pumps, and they can only be variable driven so low. And at that point, when they couldn't go any lower than that, they would turn off, and then the float system would take over, and then we'd go right back to the old style where it was turning on and turning off until flows were high enough. So I made the decision to change to the newer style pumps because we have more of a broad range of variability in our flows. And with that came this change order. There's not much of an explanation for what's really changing, and really in your eyes what you're seeing is that it's costing more money, and it is, but in reality it's only costing $1,400 more. And this is because if you look at page 2, which is the letter from Brendan, or to Brendan from Roselle, you have the original quote of $21,425. That was just for the pumps. That included this 15% P and OH number, which wasn't included with the new pump. That's why it's on here.
That's the change order fee.
No, that is like, say I purchased a piece of,
Purchase,
yes.
yeah.
So Roselle's basically adding 15% to the pump because they're.
Right, that's part of the contract, all right, for anything you
So that
change.
21,000 in reality was $21,425 plus $40,000, and that $40,000 was for Aqualogics to put in a new panel, to do the level transducers, the RTVs for signal back to the wastewater plant, so we can actually monitor the.
So those are
flows.
all the controls.
That's all the control stuff. With the newer style pump, the $44,408 is the cost of the pump plus the panel that comes with the pump.
So it's included.
Aqualogics isn't installing that panel because it comes with the pump. Plus the 15%, so that brings you to, and then the other addition to that is $15,000 instead of $40,000 from Aqualogics. And that is just to set up the RTVs so that we can see everything back at the wastewater plant. So the new total cost in reality is $62,855. Originally, with the older style pumps, it was $61,425. Originally, this is actually all under allowance, so the change order wasn't necessary, but it was a way for the village to just see what is changing. Other than that, if you have something to add.
No, I think you pretty much covered it. So for simple layman's terms, you're improving the pump from the standard pump to adjust for the variability in flows. And because of that, you can reduce the allowance for the controls and the alarms and the tie-ins from 40,000 down to about 15,000. So the overall cost for getting much better pumps for a more efficient system is gonna be about $1,500. Does that capture it?
Yep. And I have the exact number here, but that's not necessary.
So,
Yeah, I would
Mark?
just like to see Brendan do the breakdown, you know.
Yeah, I
so
think
it shows
for-
that he didn't give me enough information.
I think for I don't really know how
Not for the
change orders work,
But he
but
should give you a breakdown.
I just,
Breakdown.
I just saw this as, this is what we're changing to, and, you know, but,
Yeah, because if you look at this, it doesn't say what
What's
it just said.
changing, yeah.
What's changing.
Right.
with
The overall-
Overall.
I mean,
The
all you
overall
have on here
rationale.
is the original quote was the 21,000, but that doesn't have the 40,000 added in, which would have been a better explanation, so.
So are you comfortable signing the change order or giving an approval for me signing the
Yes.
change order now
Just the
with
full
the
complete
proviso
quote.
that the rationale be provided from Brendan?
Yeah, in case the public looks at it, they have the complete breakdown and what the actual cost was.
Okay,
Okay.
Yeah, otherwise.
Would it
All right.
be, okay, I'll have.
You'd have to
Brendan
subtract
do
from that
or-
44, the cost of the connector from the 44.
Correct.
So if they did that math, it would then show a net increase.
and then
of
you have another
$1,500,
allowance.
right.
So that 44,000 stays, but there's an additional line for an allowance
That's
with all the
subtracted
controls.
off of that.
And, you know, that 30 grand comes, or
Any
close
money
to 30
that's not
grand.
spent out of the allowance just goes, it doesn't get spent,
Right.
you know.
We don't have to pay anything on
Yeah.
it, right, right. Okay, so may I have a motion then to accept the change order, Mark Doniker? And may I have a second? Second. Letty? And then any other comments? Okay, and that motion would include my signing the change order. So all in favor? Right, all opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you, Ed, and if the board doesn't see you beforehand, best wishes. All the best, mazel tov.
I'll be around, I'm always around.
And take the time that you need.
Yeah, I will.
All right, good. Thank you. All right, clerk treasurer report.
I did not do a written report. The only thing that's been consuming most of my time is budget prep for the last couple of weeks. I have been getting in contact with our accounting software person because we do have the option of doing budget prep through the software. But it does have a lot of manual entries for this first initial year. So going to be figuring out exactly how much time that's gonna take up and what exactly I need to do. Hopefully tomorrow I'll
So
have
once you
that.
get it settled, it's gonna be much easier going forward.
Correct, it'll be more or less like, kind of just pushing a button and, entering new, like this year's numbers, and then next year would just be entering next year's numbers, and it'll be much easier after this initial first startup, so that's about it.
I have an offer on the table that I would.
Yeah, Mark said he would help me
I'll
out
volunteer to
if,
key everything in.
Terrific. Any other comments for Crystal? And Crystal will be out of town. what
Next week.
Next week, she'll be out of town for a week.
yes.
All right, may I have a motion to approve abstract number 16?
So moved.
All right, Letty, second? Okay. Mark Crary, any questions, comments? Okay, all in favor say aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Okay, moving on to old business. Emergency Halloween storm update. I guess we'll be talking about that for a very long time. It is, FEMA has approved or received, let me back up. Hamilton County has received notification that their FEMA application has been accepted. We are still pending, so we really can't move forward until we hear something from that, but it is expected imminently. Next is LoSAP transition for firefighters. I was speaking with the attorney for that. At the next meeting, I will provide resolution to be considered by the board, as well as the requisite referendum required for modifying the LoSAP program, and then that will go on the ballot for approval. Next is Verizon Small Cells. This is currently under review by the town attorney. I spoke with him and Katie Smith today, so that's moving forward. We should be finalizing that. Did anyone have any comments based on the contract, the agreement that I sent out, provided to you last week? No. Okay, good. LED buyouts still being strung along by National Grid and trying to get involved with NIPA, still waiting feedback. The last bit of old business is the employee handbook, but at your approval, we'll move that to the end and not bore people terribly, and those diehards that would like to stay through that, we'll do that. Okay? Next is new business. So Matt O'Brien has a new application for membership, if we can pass that around. This is for Richard Dickey Mayers to be added to the list of volunteers. He will be functioning as a pump operator as well as a driver. Do you have any comments on that, Matt?
He was a previous member as well, in the past, so he got off, and then I think went to ambulance corps, now he's off the ambulance corps, and went back to fire department, so.
Well, we do miss him on the ambulance corps.
Too bad.
Them's fighting words. Do you know how long he served on
I
the,
do not know the floor. On the ambulance corps or on this one?
on the fire department?
Dicky Mayers.
Okay. Anyone would like to make a motion to approve Dickey
Oh, I
Mayers?
will make that motion.
All right, so Karen, anybody second? Mark Crary. Any discussion? No comments about Dickey? All right.
Not good.
All, not in public, okay. So, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. All right, motion carries. Congratulations to the fire department. You've got a good fellow there. Good. Okay, Trustee Doniker, proposing a reserve fund policy. So you all received a copy of this draft policy. So Mark, if you want to take us through it.
I drafted a policy based on the guidelines set down by the New York State Controller. And the purpose of the policy is to establish a fund balance policy for each reserve fund to address the needs of the village and establish adequate reserves to maintain necessary public service. There's two different types. There's specific and type of reserve fund. In this case, we would be doing a specific item, and that would include machinery, equipment, apparatus, not included in the definition of capital improvement, for which a period of probable usefulness has been provided by law. On the third page, back of the fourth page, are the items specific to the Department of Public Works, water plant, or system, wastewater plant, the dump trucks, sanitation trucks, vehicles type 1 through 8, heavy-duty vehicles, mowers, tractors, and backhoes. So that's all that could be used. All the money has to be used for those specific items. If we use CHIPS money, then for capital, to put in the capital reserve, then the superintendent of Department of Public Works also has to make that approval.
In addition to the board.
And the water system fund can only use money derived from the revenue from the water supply, and same for the wastewater. So they can't take money from Roger and put it. This will allow them to plan better. Roger and I have gone over the vehicle list, and we have replacement vehicles starting this year right into 2032. This will allow them to plan and save some money for their vehicles, and the same for Ed. We can set limits to each, three separate resolutions, one for each department, and we can establish the funds that we want to put in those departments, just so they can plan better. If I need, like one of the things Roger said, I need a backhoe that's $180,000. Well, he doesn't have $180,000, so he may have to plan for 2 or 3 years down the road in order to buy the backhoe, unless he wants to lease it or rent it. So he's gonna have to make those decisions. And it just gives them the opportunity to be part of the process of saving money and planning for their future.
I think it also gives transparency to our taxpayers, showing where those monies are going to go forward. I know that the village has not always used reserve funds.
So,
We have used them.
Yes, yeah.
One question now, I see this capital reserve fund may be funded in a budgetary appropriation,
maybe, it depends.
or
But
does it come out of the unappropriated fund
It
balance?
usually come out of the unappropriated funds, but again, if you can read it, if you wanna strike something,
Well, this is new, because we were never, ever able
Well, this
to
comes right
budget
from the-
reserve fund money.
yeah. And again, I would think that, the rollover, any leftover money in there could go to the capital fund, or, and that's, I would think in highway money, CHIPS money.
Yes, some places take a percentage of the unappropriated fund balance for the general fund. They take the remaining unappropriated fund balance, percentage-wise, to capital fund, area. So you can have more than one.
And this is just a snapshot of their 42 pages. I tried to
I
make
know, I
it,
read it.
so did I, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So we follow the guidelines set down by the controller, and, you know, the public wants to see it, it's easy to read and easy to understand.
Right. I think another thing to point out is that there are certain referendum requirements. And those are primarily for the fire department. So there are no reserve funds that can be established without a referendum. So we are,
Is that if you have a fire district?
if you have a fire department.
Just the fire
No,
department.
I didn't say, I'm saying,
No.
does that apply if you have a fire district?
It applies for all fire departments regardless of districts. For fire departments, they always have to be public referendums.
And we wanted to talk to Matt and Ryan if they would like to set up the same sort of fund, because we had that problem where Ryan came in and thought they had $40,000 set aside in a reserve fund to use towards the new ladder truck, but
Well,
we
there-
couldn't
there-
find that.
Yeah, I know, but it was usually applied from the appropriated fund balance when the need arose.
Okay.
It wasn't that we didn't have the money.
Well, yeah, he was looking for it, and he thought he
Well,
had $40,000.
yeah, but it wasn't always just something that was on paper.
Question, Letty? You said in the past you've had reserve funds? Are they still in effect, or were they closed out by resolution?
When they were used, they were closed out.
By resolution?
As I said, when the reserve fund was established, the money was appropriated when the need arose. It was never on paper,
So there was no resolutions establishing a reserve fund?
no,
Okay.
or referendum.
Order.
So-
I just want to make one comment about the existing budget that we're into now. In the general fund, there was an appropriation for the interest on the water bond. How do I want to say this? The premise for that was that there were, and this was okayed by audit and control. I don't know what they're telling you now, and unfortunately, as per se, we never got it in writing, but we did contact them, and the thought was when we established the water bond came into effect, we wanted to somehow get a broader base of water users other than those people that were getting the water. So the premise was that since there were entities that were covered or came covered as for protection from the fire department, and the fire department being in the general fund, we felt that we knew the principal had to be paid out of the water fund. But we asked about the possibility of putting the interest on the bond in the general fund to offset the expense of the water to those people who were not paying for it. And according to audit and control, that was perfectly acceptable. Now we're going back to the 1990s. what their attitude is now, because chances are you got a whole crew down there. But I didn't want everybody to think that this was done in error or in malice. Was not the intent. We were trying to find those people who don't pay for water, but are protected by the fire department, to at least share some of the burden.
Okay, okay.
Speaking of water, Matt, maybe you can answer this question. The water that's sitting in the tankers or pump trucks now, where did that come from?
That comes from the village.
That's a village, you turn the spigot on, it didn't come out of.
Or we go to hydrant, yeah. We don't like to suck water and hold it from the lakes into the tanks, because it just
Okay.
corrodes things. You can get fish in there that float around,
So practices, you open the tap and fill your trucks?
We go to hydrant, we fill the tanks up, yes.
Okay.
So it's either metered if it's filled at the village hall, or at the fire department, which would be during the winter months more than likely. And if they fill it off of a hydrant, it's written down, so I know how much water was used. And at least we have an idea of, so it's either being charged when it's filled at the firehouse, or it's not, it's filled off of a hydrant. And either or doesn't matter to me, it's a village entity, so.
Okay.
Right. So in going back to the New York State Office of the State Comptroller, I spoke again to Leslie Richard, and so she had called me back about that specific question, Letty, about having a water district and fire elsewhere. So she says that in her experience, she'd never heard of that before, although she couldn't say that that had never happened.
I don't know who.
No, but that's not to say it could not have been possible in the past. She had just never heard of it.
Yeah, and what
But
I'm saying is, every financial report that ever went down there from 1992 to 93 had that appropriation in there, and we got a final thing back from the state, never ever questioned.
So it was questioned this time.
Well,
So,
that's what I said, there's a whole new ballgame down there.
yep, so she said that the fire department would be under contract to provide services for the entire village and not a specific portion limited by access to public water. And that the fact that there is a separate water district was irrelevant to fire protection. Now, if we find that the bill for filling up trucks that are being serviced outside the water district, I mean, maybe that's something we should look at to see if the water charges should be put into the general fund for your exercises or whatever.
That's not gonna cover it though. That
We don't
water,
use that much water.
Yeah, that's what I fear.
If we're
Yeah.
on a scene, we're doing tank task force, we're really we're sucking from the lake.
Okay.
It's just when we're storing water for a long period of time.
That it comes
End of a
from-
fire, we go to a hydrant, we get clean water.
Okay,
If
okay.
we're doing a lot of water shuttling, stuff like that, usually we try to find a lake, a dry hydrant, something that we can suck a lot of water quickly.
okay.
And, you know,
One of the biggest entities that you cover though is the New York State Land here. In the event of a forest fire, you are gonna be called to help fight that forest fire.
Yes.
And you're gonna draw water out of the hydrant. That state of New York has not paid one dime for that water.
Charge it to them.
Yes, I'm trying to, and they don't like the idea.
They don't.
But I mean, when you would respond to those sorts of areas, I don't think we necessarily have hydrants in the area that you would be able to hook up to. You'd be hooking up to a pond. No,
You
no.
don't have to go very far from a hydrant.
No, I understand, but to go far from a hydrant, you still have access where you can get it from ponds or lakes or,
I'm sure.
Standing bodies of water.
It's such
Yeah.
vague, I mean, there's so
It's
many.
very vague.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean,
And
So-
chances are
And we
no.
even let Lake Pleasant use our fire hydrants at the end. If they
Yeah.
need that hydrant, they can
Right.
use it to fight a fire.
so at the end of the day, so let's,
That's fine, but I just don't like to see the state of New York get something. I'm sorry.
so as we tie it back to the original question, from the Office of the State Comptroller, we are not allowed to put the interest payment in the general fund.
So if that interest payment is going to go into the water liability column, what is that going to do to the water budget?
Well, we'll be discussing that when Ed comes to talk about the water budget. But I think right now we would still be flush according to the 30-year predictions. We would still be okay for the next several years, right? 6 or 7
By
years.
adding that addition to that budget?
Correct. And then the way that we would account for that, we would have to sit down as a board and decide whether we need to make the increase in water base rate a little bit higher, or add a few pennies to user fees, you know, for the volume use. But it'd have to be covered underwater.
Okay, just to get back, so to give everyone a chance to read the proposal, and I will have resolutions not only for this, but for capital reserve for water, wastewater, and Department of Public Works at the next one.
Okay,
All right?
great, thank you, Mark. Okay. Next is fire tower. So, as you know, the DEC has awarded us a smart growth grant in the amount of $100,000 to the village of Speculator. At the time, we were looking at a donation of a fire tower by Jonathan Lane, donating the Hooker Hill Fire Tower. After inspection by fire tower expert David Vanna, the tower was deemed irreparable, and an alternative tower was sought, and that is the McComas Fire Tower as one option. What is interesting is that it has very good history and very good documentation, as this was one of the first steel towers erected in the Adirondacks in New York State on McComas Mountain in Essex County in 1916. There's an opportunity to register the tower with the National History Registry. The tower height is 49 feet to the top of the cab. At the present time, it is fully restored, and the cost to us would be approximately $120,000. In that, the DEC requires us to give in kind, either by donation or in work, $15,000. So that would contribute into that. The alternative is a fire tower from Pennsylvania that would be the tallest tower at 120 feet. There's no historic value per se, except that it was the tallest, but we wouldn't be able to put it up at 120 feet. So cutting that height to 64 feet refurbished would cost about $75,000. And if we did an 88-foot height, apologies for the spelling error, that would cost about $85,000. There is another, so that comes from Mike Valleggi, giving us those estimates. Dave Vanna gave us alternative proposal, where he would look for a 60-foot tower at $150,000. And again, that would come from Pennsylvania, all the way up to $100,000 for $180,000. And his estimates do not include the site prep, concrete work, general manpower, and ground labor. And we'll get into his contract. The APA does require a variance for anything over 40 feet. They are well aware of the grant in their discussions, and I had spoken with them during a pre-application before we even put in the grant, just to make sure we'd be able to put something up. The proposed site would be near the entrance to the nature trail. So it's behind the pavilion, not behind the pavilion directly, but past the pavilion and the ball field, and it doesn't disturb an existing pathway or kiosks, although an additional one would be provided. In your packet are color photos that Dave McComb very kindly helped me cite, the 17 by 17 foot base. So Crystal has printed out a visual map where the square is estimated to go. Zoning officer said it was within our
Conformable setback from wherever.
Conform-
49 feet's the only issue, 40 feet with us, we can handle that down the road if the APA, I'm sure, approves it.
Great. So in the first square, you see the little red line, so that is cited at 17-foot square. The other two are, were done last spring when we still had snow on the ground, just to give you some view. And you were also given access to my Google Drive that had elevations at 20, 40, 60, 80 feet high, just showing that the proposed site would not have visual lines into our neighbors to the north of the fire department. As I understood, when the town of Lake Pleasant was looking to erect a fire tower, there were issues with privacy and things like that. There were questions of insurance. The last time this village board had talked about the fire tower a while ago, I spoke with NYMER and our coverage. There would be no change in liability insurance. There would be a slight charge for replacement value of the tower, which I was told would be nominal. What we had heard last time, but I think got confused, was when you get transferred to the risk aversion group, they are of the opinion that everything should be boxed off with a lid, look and don't touch, and don't let anybody ever come near it. So when I said that that wasn't something reasonable, that we wanted people to do that, then, you know, we're...
Are you gonna allow people to climb on it?
Yes, yeah. So the safety issues that are in place right now is that the stairs are enclosed by fencing. All the platforms, so each level is enclosed by fencing. And that there's also an opportunity to put a gate at the bottom, a locking door that is timed to be electronically opened during our hours of operation. And there's a possibility that we might be able to work with our fire department that has a camera, that it might be able to look and see if there's any mischief going on. So
The power to that location too.
Oh, for the electronic lock, yeah. Right. So those are some of the ideas, and then in addition to that, have a sign, as would be warranted, what things are prohibitive on the tower itself. The costs, the DEC grant is for $100,000. That is less $10,000 for administrative costs that the Lake George, Lake Champlain Planning Board would administer the grant for us, because there's a lot to that. It looks like we would have a gap of approximately $30,000 between what is being asked for and what we would have to pay for the tower. Right now, the IDA said that a bridge loan option would be available. We would not have to do anything with that loan until it came time to pay out. There's also an opportunity to do fundraising, and I'm sorry, I called it a breach loan, it's a bridge loan. There are also numerous grants that we can apply for to fill in that differential so that it would still remain at no cost or no cost to the village. I've heard back from one group already who's very excited to see our application. There are also foundations for matching donors, and the Adirondack Architectural Heritage Association said that they would promote the tower for fundraising and awareness opportunities, as well as give us any additional advice for erecting fire towers, since they're very keen on doing that. In-kind donations and help from the village would contribute to the $15,000 that we would be required to do. Gary Wicks has informed me that he would work with the Lake Pleasant School shop classes to construct a kiosk, an 8-paneled kiosk that would include history of the tower, the nature trail, Speculator, etc. He would donate some fire tower related materials that he has, including a map desk and a map, etc. And that the county had offered to actually transport the tower from Whiteface, where it is currently located, if we agree to go forward, and that would go towards the $15,000. The benefits to Speculator, besides the long-term goal of tourism and bringing them into our local economy is to provide accessibility for all regardless of income. The majority of towers now are either in a state park or on top of a mountain. So if it's difficult to get to, or you have to pay an admission fee to get in. Education helps with the public regarding fire towers, our area. It'd be open to schools and campgrounds as appropriate. There's a push to improve health, to climb those towers, to connect to our local trail where it's located right now, or where it's proposed to be located. That would encourage people to walk and hike so they could see it from a high height and then, walk back and see what they were actually looking at. So I know I've said a lot so far. I still have a few more things to show you. Are there any questions at this point?
The bottom line is the $15,000.
The 15,000 in kind.
Okay, so but the bottom line is $20,000 that we have to raise
There's a gap.
above. It's $20,000 is the gap.
Yeah, $30,000. $30,000
$30,000
because it's the administration fees are coming out of the 100. So there's a $30,000 gap.
$12,000 for that, for the administration, right?
They've knocked it down to 10. So I'm.
Oh, they knocked it down?
Yep, so
Okay,
I'll.
so I saw 12.
So if you look at the cover page that I had sent out, and again, this came today because we were having issues with the DEC grant. So I've provided you a copy, I sent you an electronic copy of the contract, and then these are relevant pages because according to the planning board, this is a standard DEC contract. So the things that relate to us are the first 4 pages are the grant face pages. So it specifically says it's a municipal grant, fixed term. It would expire on Halloween 2022. Yep, the type of funding. The next 2 pages are the village expenses. So $15,000 worth of in-kind services. So according to Mike Fileggi, as well as Dave Vanna, the site preparation is estimated at $3,000 to $5,000. That's a cost that would be projected. Concrete work is $7,000 to $10,000 if they were to do it. And then general manpower and ground laborers is an additional $3,000 to $6,000. So in speaking with Roger, as far as what the DPW would be able to do, as well as the county, they feel very secure that they would be able to do the amount of work required to prepare the site and do the contract work that would fall within our $15,000. Of course, if there's anything additional raised through grants, through donations, that would also go towards our $15,000 contribution. The grant administration, I had confirmation today, would be adjusted from $12,000 down to $10,000. And the construction restoration line would be increased from $88,000 to $90,000. So we have $90,000 from the grant to actually do the tower. Sorry, can't speak today. The work plan would be updated with respect to creating a bid packet for a request for proposal. There are very few people who actually erect fire towers. There's less than half a dozen. So under our procurement policy, pursuant to General Municipal Law 104B, subsection 2, subsection F, the procurement for which is the sole discretion of the governing body, the solicitation, I think I have this cut off a little bit. This would fall under professional services or services requiring special or technical skill or training, and that the individual company must be chosen based on accountability, reliability, a few other things, including their moral worth. But with that said, we do have 2 sources giving us proposals for fire towers and cost of fire towers. So David Vanna, he would start at $150,000 for a 60-foot tower. And so the McComas Tower would be approximately 120. So the last thing you have in your packet is a proposal from Mr. Vanna. And so he is proposing to sell us the McComas fire tower. That is a piece of not only Adirondack, but New York State history, as I said before. This is an original Aeromotor LL25 model, for those of you who know your fire towers. He can replace the stairs as an additional safety precaution with non-slip galvanized metal. Right now, there's white pine, which can get slippery in all kinds of weather, but with the galvanized, they have the treads on it. They also have holes through it, so if there's ice or snow buildup, it melts quickly and falls through. The fire tower can be stored at his location until the time of assembly, and again, we have until the fall of 2022. The fire tower will be built when Speculator is ready for it, that's so long as we give him 2 weeks' notice. The fire tower purchase is estimated at $70,000. Restoration, which has already been done, was estimated at $22,000. Transportation to the site is $3,000, and that would already, I have promise from the county that they would be happy to assume that. They would go and get it. The galvanized stairs and landings would be approximately $3,000. Site work before and after, $10,000, which could be done by the village and the county, as well as the concrete work, and the assembly on site, for a total project cost of $148,000, but with the highlighted services, it would knock it down to $117,000. He's flexible as far as payments go. He's as generally as 50% down to reserve the tower, 25% on delivery and 25% on completion. If we need to adjust that, he's more than willing to do it because he really wants it to be open to the public and accessible as the original tower owner had requested before his death. He comes from 15 years of successfully taking down and reassembling towers. He bought his first tower in 2005. He is the person who assembled the Orangeburg, South Carolina tower in Rhinebeck in the Ferncliff Forest, which has been in papers if you wish to Google that. It's the tallest tower in New York State. And since then, he's taken down quite a few towers. And in 2019, he restored the St. Regis Fire Tower at Paul Smith's. And you can read the rest. He does have additional references besides Lori from the New York State Fire Tower group, who she highly recommends him. There are a number of other people that we can call.
The Historical Society has a friend, the fire tower expert, the one that's written all. Marty podcast. So if I can find his email, I'm gonna email him and ask him if he knows anything about this fire tower.
Martin, he has written about it.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So I had provided the
He's
board.
been over here giving many speeches. If possible, I would like him to be in attendance.
Oh,
When
absolutely.
this thing is erected.
Well, we have to agree for a few things. But for any of the public who's interested in receiving a chapter of the Adirondack Fire Towers that highlights McComas Mountain and the McComas Fire Tower, we do have a copy in the office here. And the book was authored by Martin
I have it.
Podskotch. Correct. So we have that. I also, the McComas Fire Tower was also highlighted in North Country Living. And it was highlighted in the Sun this October. I don't know where the Sun is out of. So anybody likes to see that? No, okay. So with that said, there are a few things that we would need to decide. First of all is whether we are willing to go forward with this, and whether the site selected is acceptable to the board to progress with this.
Looking at this picture here that Dave is in,
Of Dave.
if you're looking at the, I'm trying to, say you were standing by the pavilion area, does it impair in any way the entrance to the pathway? Or
No.
like, when you, how high up is it before you actually get to a platform? Would you be looking underneath it?
Here,
Yeah,
look at this.
yeah, I
This
don't
is
get
the
it.
ball, this is the ball here.
Yeah,
Right.
so I've got a,
And
This is over here.
the pathway is over here.
I'm not very drone.
Here.
No, this is not a drone photo.
This is not a drone photo?
No, no.
Well,
It's actually a Google Maps.
I can't read that.
Dave, would you?
Well, okay, all right.
I'm sorry, given the
Oh,
cost
this is
of
the
our color
bocce ball.
printer.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Yeah, this is the
Okay.
sign.
Yeah,
So this is actually, the square is actually probably a tiny bit bigger than what it would be. I measured it on the little,
okay, yeah.
bar down there.
Thingamajig.
Yeah, the little bar down there.
Thingamajig.
So the footprint is 17 by 17 feet, so it's really kind of small.
Okay. Like
So-
way over here.
Right, so it does not impede the access to snowmobiling, it does not impede access to the nature trail, it does not impede access to the Route 66 Village, or the pavilion, or cross-country skiing, and the ball games.
Or my bocce court.
Or your bocce court, that's all safe and secure.
Good.
Personally, I think that this would be a great opportunity for the village to not only have a fire tower, one of the 100, well, less than 100. There were 110 to start in the Adirondacks. Now they're down to about half of that. So, to save that huge piece of history, as an aside, not that we want to do one-upmanship on anybody, but this tower was originally earmarked for Lake George. And they were in negotiations with Mr. Velleggi for 18 months to 2 years, and then finally backed out of it. So it's a unique opportunity for us. He would like some sort of confirmation that we would go through with this. Otherwise, he has other people that he would offer it to. So it's a time-limited.
I think we should take any reasonable measures to secure this fire tower. What is the essence of the Adirondacks when you drive in a Speculator? A fire tower. And a lake on the left, a fire tower on the right. It's like almost like a no-brainer.
The views are stunning.
I have a couple questions.
Yes, sir.
This Dave fellow, would he serve as a project manager for this,
Mike Velleggi?
or Mike?
Mike Velleggi, he and 2 people would put it up over the course of 4 days. It takes 4 days to.
But would he be
The project manager, yes, to ensure that the footings are done correctly, and, is that what you're asking?
Well, oversee that we got the grant, we got the APA.
No. So he is
Just his
strictly
role.
the tower. What we have is for the grant oversight, making sure that we have the right permits and APA and all those kinds of things. We work with the Lake George, Lake Champlain Planning Board. And so that's why we pay them $10,000. So they make sure that we have the appropriate contract, we have the right insurance, we have the APA approval, and they walk through all of that.
So that by default, the board would be a project manager or the mayor? Just asking. Or do we need to select a project manager?
There you go.
Well, I'm happy to see this through, but of course, if someone would like to do that, I would notify the board every step of the way of what we're doing and what the progress is. Other people would be called upon for fundraising activities and helping to coordinate the larger folks, such as the Historical Society, Lake Pleasant School, working with Gary Wicks, if there are other people who are interested in participating in that.
Spark, maybe.
Okay.
Fundraising.
Do we have an approximate time frame for the APA to make a decision?
Well, the APA is aware of it and excited about it, and when I first spoke with them, the Hooker Hill, fire tower was 80 feet tall. And they didn't see that as a huge obstacle, and that she was ready to come and take measurements and all that sort of stuff. I think it's going to be less of a problem doing it at 49 feet.
Is that a 30-day, 90-day, 100-day?
I'd have to go back and
process,
ask,
you know?
yeah, I would have to go back and ask Ariel about that. She's the DEC person I've been working with. But I didn't want to go back until I knew that we wanted to progress with this one versus something else. But I'll ask her tomorrow.
How about a time frame for the
For
whole
the
grant,
$30,000.
the grant,
Well,
the
it would
grant
be-
process, the grant process?
Well, it would be my suggestion that we wait until next spring or next summer, so that we can fully explore the amount of grants to apply, because they're coming up now. We'd go more towards private grants because the turnover is faster, and then, let people participate in the fundraising as well.
We'll ask Marty how much you'd like to donate.
There you go.
Yes, and I think that it'd be a great opportunity to have Marty come and Mike Velleggi and have a little background of the tower and how it came to be and its pathway.
Marty may be aware of money that is available someplace else.
Yes, and,
So I would certainly contact him.
yep, and if you would like to do that, that'd be great. And Lori Rankin has given me a list that I provided, some of them I provided in your packet, and Adirondack, somebody sent me a note today saying that they would like to help out, that they have everything pending the board's approval to go forward.
The Architectural Heritage Society is very well endowed insofar as their membership goes.
Correct.
They would be willing to help.
I did ask them for funds, and they came back and said that they would be very happy to help publicize.
To promote, yes. There's no
They
dollar
would promote
sign
the
to
tower
promote.
for fundraising and awareness. So with that said, I think
Right.
that if there's fundraising, some of their well-endowed members may contribute to
have,
that part of
yes.
history. Right, so, from the numerous people that I've talked to in the county, in the town, in these different groups, they don't see that raising that $30,000 buffer should be an issue. And I wanted to make sure that the board was aware that we have a fallback plan with the IDA in case we say, okay, we want to do it now, we want to do it this summer. We would be able to draw from a low-interest grant or a no-interest grant until we came through with the fundraising, although I was raised in an era where, you pay for what you want first.
Oh, yeah, before asking that, right.
Correct, correct.
So he would need more than a letter of intent? He would need some money to
But
hold it for
he would
14 months?
There were handshakes and agreements with prior people that amounted to nothing. So I think it would only be fair, since he would be housing it, that he would be paid a portion. He said that he would work with us as to that amount, and he knows that we have to go through the signing of contracts and all those things in advance.
But we wouldn't get any, this grant hasn't even been filed yet. They give you any time frame as to?
What do you mean it hasn't been filed? We've been awarded it.
We've been how much can we draw from that initially?
We can draw the cost of the
Oh, you can?
tower.
Oh, you
yes.
can? Oh, okay.
Yeah, so what they're doing now is the comments that I gave you in the email, they are modifying at present, they are modifying the grant administration cost, reducing that to 10,000 and adjusting the construction. And then they're also modifying the work plan for creating a bid packet for a request for proposal, because this is selective. And they are also modifying the work plan to specifically state that we are purchasing a tower rather than totally renovating the tower. I already have approval from the DEC Smart Growth Grants person who said that's perfectly fine. That's well within the grant intent.
So to answer your concern, we can draw money from that to give a deposit to hold it as.
Yes.
Okay, that's
Or
what
we
I
could
meant, okay.
purchase the tower
Right.
and then decide when we were going to install it,
Correct.
based
Right.
on funding.
Right, so we would decide on how much we would give him up front, and
Right.
then the remainder at the time of delivery, which is 4 days later, the time of completion. As an addition, the tower and the first 6 feet and the top cab are erected at present, so if any of the board would like to go and visit that, touch it, that is possible.
$10 a touch though.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, well, it could be an opportunity for those of you who are squeamish about heights, that you can actually go into the cab before it goes all the way up. Just a thought, okay. No, is that a no, Letty? Okay.
So would it be feasible, like a third deposit, a third, you know, when they start the construction and a third in completion?
So his cost for the tower right now is 92,000. So, I think that if we at least covered the cost of the fire tower purchase, 70,000, I think that that would be reasonable. I think he would be amenable to that. And we'd still have enough to cover the other things until we would have to start doing the other things.
Right.
Does he have any qualifications on the purchase that he would want certification on the concrete work or certification on the site work? Or, I mean, is this just his little baby that he wants to make sure
I would
nothing ever
make
happens?
sure that he is there every step of that way, so that, you know, all of his specifications are followed to a T.
So he'll provide a schematic for the permit to put the,
Yes,
or drawing to put the cement in. And then he monitors that and ensures the correct concrete strength.
yep.
I'm sure Bob can give us advice.
Yes. So I think, it's not public comment yet. All right, I recognize Mr. O'Brien with an item that has not come up that's relevant to this discussion.
ADA compliance. Any thought about that? We're bringing a tower that's usually on top of a mountain. Kind of is not allowing people to get up to the top.
It's an historic structure.
It'll be exempt. It'll be exempt? Okay, that's all I was
Yep.
wondering, because I know people are, I mean, they're
Yep.
going after everybody, websites aren't ADA compliant, and they're suing them, so. Oh, it's true.
No, that's a very
So
good
I just
point,
wanna
and I'm
make sure
sorry.
that's something that couldn't, is.
Yep, nope, it's an excellent point. So many questions have been asked, you know, during this whole process, but ADA compliance was one of them, and that since it's an historic structure, it would not have to be retrofitted with ADA compliance. Correct. So, at this time, I would like I'd like a motion to accept the grant contract for $100,000 with the project to be completed by October 31st, 2022, with the designated modifications, that includes designated modifications to the contract, that includes the in-kind services, the reduction in grant administration costs, and the purchase of the tower, and the fact that I can sign the contract on behalf of the village, and that the proposed site is acceptable. May I have a motion?
I'll make or Mark, you wanna make a motion?
Go ahead.
No, I'll make a motion, whatever you just said there. I can't repeat it.
And I'll second it.
Okay, great, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all opposed? Okay. And the second is to accept the proposal with the condition that we would be able to put 70% down and the remaining funds to be split, half at time of delivery, half at time of construction, with the schematics and the specifications.
So moved.
Also, that, I just wanna
Yep.
say a provision that we could pay that in two budget years, because he said that he would help in the budgeting of the project, that we could pay it in.
We're not paying any, well,
No, the money that we have to make up somewhere, either
That's already
it's the
found.
budget or it's being funded by other people. We're
Correct.
hoping it gets funded by other people.
correct.
But,
Oh, and he's good to wait until 2022,
all right.
correct.
Super.
So, so to accept his proposal with those provisions, Karen has, made that motion, second?
Second.
Letty, all in favor? All opposed? All right, motion carries. It looks like we're gonna have a fire tower.
You better get those t-shirts getting printed. Save the fire,
Oh, well,
you know?
I've got someone
You know?
lined up for that too, but
Fire tower t-shirts.
very, very, very exciting. So, now for the, slightly painful portion of our meeting is,
Everybody get up.
Good evening.
Have a good rest of your meeting.
okay,
This is where you ordered the holiday.
well, I,
All around the table.
You didn't do public?
No, is there any more
well, the
public
public comment has to come after we do the employee
And they're
handbook.
not gonna stay long enough.
They're not gonna stay.
I had public comment.
You did?
At the end of
But you did.
she's gonna go with the.
Well, can we wait?
She's gonna go by the book.
Can we wait the order? Maybe we should have waived the order if he had something to say. I know. Oh, well.
Okay,
Keep that thought, Bill.
yeah. Go ahead, thanks. Okay, so
Be right back.
let us, oh,
Go ahead. Put it back.
Letty, I'd hate to miss anything. Okay, I know. Okay, so we had left off
Page 22.
page 22, section 5.12. Are you okay? You have yours?
No, I don't know.
You want to share?
Yeah. Can I?
Okay,
You can.
so section 5.12.
Just because I like you.
5.12,
We just, don't worry, board.
we're gonna go fast.
I like
Go
you.
faster.
We're gonna go much
We don't have
faster.
to, yeah, things that.
Yes, so section 5.12, it's fine. 5.12.1, there are some corrections, nothing of substance. Everything fine with,
Yep.
okay? 5.12.2, there's been an addition saying that all eligible employees must read and sign the email policy provided in the appendix. Okay. There was a bullet point under proper usage, and the question is, the statement is, messages must not potentially embarrass the village of Speculator, which is an interesting inclusion. Suggest deleting that?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. You good with that? I'm not sure how we would be embarrassed. And then, passwords will not be given to anybody. The rest of the section on computers, we are requesting that people lock down their computer at the end of the day, and that it's all stored in a cloud backup storage as well as other storage that we have. Local backup. Okay, all right. 5.13, personal appearance. There are no changes to that, so we can all stay the same. Solicitation and distribution, instead of annoy, it was disturb. Any comments? 5.15 is disclosure of information. There's just a correction to reference to FOIL, no other changes there. 5.16, maintenance of work area, no changes. 5.17, personal property. There are some corrections under personal liability where quote, "An employee bringing personal property to the workplace does so at one's risk." We've just deleted that and saying, don't bring your property there. No other changes. 5.18, village property, correction in language. 5.19, unauthorized work, no change. 520, outside employment, the guidelines remain unchanged. There was just a language clarification on the third bullet, saying that no equipment, supplies, or materials may be used by an employee outside of village work. So section 5 we're done with, no comments. Absence policies, attendance, 6.1, no change. 6.2, jury duty, it's any full-time employee scheduled to work 40 hours per week, so that caveat was given, can collect. 6.3, military, no change. 6.4.
Isn't there something in law about jury duty? Did they change?
Yes, you need to pay full-time employees, but not
I
part-time,
think that's what the provision was for.
Oh.
The addition there.
for the full-time.
For the
Right, we
full-time.
added the full-time based
Oh,
on
okay,
the law,
right, right.
correct. Okay, 6.3, what we've tried to do is anywhere where a number is spelled out, we've actually put in the actual physical figure itself. Bereavement, 6.4, no change. 6.5, volunteer and emergency responders, no change. 6.7 is family and medical leave policy. Again, we added in there, scheduled to work 40 hours per week as required. No changes in sick leave, no changes in eligibility, a few typos that were corrected, definitions. At the end, let's see.
Right, where are you?
Yeah, in medical leave policy, family and medical leave policy, you have types of leave, eligibility, definitions, healthcare provider, family member. The bottom under child, it says, in the case of an employee who had such responsibility for the employee when the employee was a child.
I said, I have no idea.
Delete, I have no idea what that means. I think it was just language that was carried, it makes no sense. So persons who are in loco parentis include those with day-to-day responsibilities to care for and financially support a child. A biological or legal relationship is not necessary, but that in-between part of, in case of an employee who had such responsibility for the employee, when the employee, I would suggest that we delete that.
Yes.
All in favor? Good?
Watch it come up.
Okay. It was in there and no one said anything for 10 years.
Well, you take it out, it surely will.
It will now, right? So.
You'll know what it
Who
means.
put that in there?
So for the rest of that section, there is a word taken out here or adjusted for clarity. Nothing of substance. All the way down to compensation. Any comments for absences?
Where are we compensations? You lost me here.
Compensation is .7 is where we're gonna start next. So we've done absences,
Okay.
okay, good?
Good.
So section 6,
Page
no
36.
additional comments. Okay. Section 7 is compensation. So this is where we have some changes here. So rate of pay, there's been an addition. So rate of pay, an employee's rate of pay will be established by the village board utilizing the most current Hamilton County wage scale. Any employee whose salary exceeds the applicable published wage based on job level and tenure shall have annual, sorry. Where? have these additions. So, where's,
It's all done.
Why did you choose the county wage scale as your standard?
that's what we were comparing to for the reason that people would not opt to go someplace else, that we would be as attractive as the town, as attractive as the county, and be,
Hamilton County, the county, looking at the scale, we pay a little bit more than the county.
yeah, so there are some points where we pay more.
The town also.
And also the county basically tells you what you're gonna get over the next 20 years, it's all broken down.
I think I'm missing a page.
We're at 36.
Yeah, her pages were different though,
Yeah, they were,
somehow.
they were
Yeah,
little,
they were, that's why.
That's not a good idea.
no,
Utilizing the
43,
current
okay.
Hamilton County wage scale,
just as a reference
Just-
point. So if we go, you know, if that is somehow much higher than what we have, I think that's something that we adjust to. And we've always compared, well, always, for the last 2 budget cycles that I've been in, we've compared back to that. And there are people who have left the village in favor of going to Lake Pleasant or going to the county because their wages were better.
well, maybe we should pay more.
I think we should evaluate that as time goes by, but as a minimum, this
I mean,
just
is such a-
sets,
This is, I mean, let's face it, this is a really low paying county,
yeah,
whether
well,
it be county, it is, it's.
yep. But I think this would set the bar. This would set a bar because there are some other positions that we have currently that are under the county that in theory should be increased.
But you're saying here that any employee whose salary exceeds the applicable published wage based on job level and tenure shall be increases of half the COLA until that wage scale catches up to his or her salary.
And that's why we're
Salary
here to discuss.
exceeds the
You could actually get rid of the Hamilton County wage scale,
I,
just established by the village board.
thank you,
And
thank you,
Okay.
yes, I
just
don't,
get rid of that and
I
then
don't-
continue, yeah. Since we,
I
the
don't like
board establishes
that.
the pay scale anyway.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter.
I just don't like that being used as a reference. I
Okay,
just have an uneasy feeling with it being used as a reference.
so then what do we do with people who are under the Hamilton County?
Well, we should, again.
Do
we
that
should-
on a case-by-case
Exactly,
basis?
Exactly.
That'll be reflected in
Yes.
what the village.
Okay.
Something that we would have to remedy.
Okay, so that addition is
we should look at
taken
that
out?
For,
We would know what that is at
Raises.
budget time,
Yeah.
right, we'd know what that is
figure
at
out
budget
what it is
time,
and,
perfect.
and make that adjustment accordingly,
yeah.
on an individual basis.
Well,
Right.
sometimes job descriptions and job responsibilities are not necessarily the same in every entity.
Well, you'd have to use labor, general labor is what we have.
Right,
right,
And
right.
they have a general labor category, which is
Yeah.
actually the lowest paying, and we pay much higher than
The
general labor.
Labor. But when we go up in,
We're a vehicle operator. so
then
have to
we
look
tend
at that.
to drop down.
Right, but because we pay higher, I'm just using as in labor category, that doesn't mean that we should penalize that labor by not giving them the 2% COLA,
Oh,
you know.
yeah, well, this year it's 1%, but,
Right.
no, but giving them an annual rate,
Well, the town gave two,
What's that?
the town gave two, right?
No, it's
Wasn't it
it's
two? Did we do
1%.
COLA?
I looked it up the
Didn't
other
we
day,
do COLA
2020 is
2% in the
1%.
town
Yeah,
budget this year?
20,
Social security
I
got
can't remember what
1%.
Randy put in there.
2020 is,
I think it was 2%.
the,
Our library got 2%.
I'm pretty sure.
that's above the COLA. That's above the COLA.
Because we think
Okay.
they're worth it this year.
Still moving. 7.2, overtime, this is where we're getting into thick water here. So, overtime compensatory time. The first change comes in FLSA non-covered and exempt employees. We deleted a section and referred people to section 2.6 of the employee handbook for village jobs that are classified as FLSA exempt. Okay? Compensatory time, Right now, with pre-authorization from the department head, an FLSA non-exempt employee will have the option of receiving compensatory time instead of overtime pay. FLSA exempt employees are not eligible for compensatory time benefits, and that's as per law. A full-time non-exempt employee is eligible to receive compensatory time off at a rate of, it's been corrected to 1.5 hours for every hour worked in excess of standard work week. Any employee may accumulate up to 40 hours in compensatory time credits. In the event an employee accrues more than 40 hours in compensatory time credits, employee must either use excess compensatory leave credits within the pay period in which it's earned or take paid overtime. And they must use all compensatory leave credits within the calendar year in which they are earned or receive payment, and will be paid 1.5 times the employee's regularly hourly rate. So that was not included. Did we? Yeah, so there is a question in here, compensatory time, the next section, use of compensatory time. It says compensatory time may be used as either vacation or sick time, and employees must notify the department head accordingly. So that's as per you would do for vacation or sick time. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. It's been a long time since I looked at this. Do we have any provisions for disallowing a situation like this to be used before a paid vacation time?
There is not something like that right now.
It's up to the department head.
It's up to the department head,
Okay.
right?
Because in other places that I've worked, you could not take this kind of compensatory time or anything off before a paid holiday time.
Right, that's right,
Yeah.
right.
But that's, yeah, technically,
Well,
you
that's.
really can't do that. It's
No,
up-
well,
once he earns it, it's up to the employee.
How they
Unless
spend it.
If there's an emergency or there's a
Yeah, it's
test.
easy to do in a small set like this, but,
Yeah.
when you're in
Right.
a huge big
When you have-
school district, yeah.
Yeah, that's a negotiated contract thing. That was a union negotiated contract thing, which
So if you would take one down and pass it around. This is comp time, overtime from the county. And the second, or the bullet that says compensatory time limits and usage. In their situation, an employee may accumulate up to 40 hours in compensatory time credits. In extraordinary circumstances, the chairman of the Board of Supervisors may permit an employee upon written request to accrue an additional 40 hours for a total of 80 hours of comp time. They may only approve the employee's request for additional comp time for a specific project or time period and fixing the total number of additional hours of comp time to be accrued. All such requests may be accompanied by a proposal to show how and when they'll use the extra comp time. So this has been asked by some of the employees for us to consider whether we would do a total of 80 hours comp time.
no, I think that's counterintuitive to a good functioning workforce.
Okay?
Yeah, it's difficult to do with a small staff like that.
Exactly.
It's like Ed now,
Yeah, it's easy.
having to be out, and now you leave one person down there
Right.
at that waste treatment plant, and that's not really acceptable by OSHA.
No, it's not like if you had 20 people in a department, where
Right,
somebody
right.
else
Oh,
can
yeah,
carry
yeah,
the
yeah.
ball for you.
Right, it's, yes.
Right.
I think.
So we'll do the 40 hours. What we did find out is that in speaking with the employees, they weren't aware that they could accumulate 40 hours of comp time. So now they know. The other question was the third paragraph from the bottom and the fourth paragraph, these two on the sheet. I'm getting a little punchy here. So an employee attending an overnight conference and training shall receive credit hours for their standard workday and not be entitled to compensatory time for attending a conference training unless travel time to and from the conference training requires the employee to travel above and beyond their normal scheduled workday. and an employee attending a day conference may accrue compensatory time if such conference requires the employee to travel above and beyond their normal scheduled workday.
That's fair.
Well, it would be, technically, it would be overtime, and then the employee can choose compensatory time.
Right.
But it's always paid overtime, and then the employee has the right to choose either one.
So in our current employee handbook, nothing is ever made reference to this. So my suggestion is that we add this in, and then we have, they can either take overtime or comp time. Okay, all right, thank you. So, pay period and check distribution. Given the improvement, 7.3, I'm sorry. A 7.3 pay period. It was required that there was a significant amount of lead time in able to process payroll, but with our new accounting system, we can do that sooner. So employees are paid on a bi-weekly, checks are issued on following the end of the pay period, the Thursday after. And I guess we took out what time it was required to be in the village office.
Yeah, just Monday.
Yeah,
Of the
it used to be Monday at noon, and so now it's anytime on Monday. Thank you. Payroll deduction
Hold
7.
on, what kind of
Yes.
certain employees may be paid on a different schedule established by the village board? What's that about?
For example, like Bob and Dave are paid on monthly basis, not a bi-weekly
Oh,
basis.
gotcha, okay, that's what that's
So-
referring to, okay, all right.
Right.
I just thought maybe you'd like to get paid every week instead of 2 weeks or not. I don't, I didn't, it's okay. Okay, fine.
For payroll deduction 7.4, we've added in there that the village clerk shall hold an annual enrollment meeting each year, no later than December 15th, to collect employees' authorized deductions. So this was a little inconsistent in the past, and this makes it more consistent. Everyone okay with that addition? All right, 7.5, nothing. Employee benefits summary. So this, I think this was adjusted a little bit for clarity. So there's a summary up front that the following is a brief description of the benefits and insurance benefits offered by the village to eligible employees. Eligibility for benefits is dependent upon a variety of factors, et cetera, et cetera. So that just sets up the employee benefits. The summary was hidden elsewhere in the document. Holidays, no change in, yes, sir.
I have a question on that.
Yes.
We took away Good Friday because it's more of a specific Catholic holiday, and we added a floating holiday.
Okay,
If you want to consider that, then the way the office and all the departments are actually open, but you can still take the day off as a floating holiday. So that's just a question because,
Are you talking about designated holidays?
yeah, designated. Good
under
Friday,
designated
because it's a
holidays,
specific
to
holiday.
remove, right, so
Group one and
to
floating
remove
holiday.
Good Friday and replace it with a floating holiday. So that way, if Christmas fell in the middle of the week, someone could take it before or after. I think it's a reasonable idea. I'm not opposed to that.
No, it just,
Yep,
most
Well,
people take
Letty?
Good Friday.
They have to be used within the calendar.
Yeah, it has to be in the calendar year.
oh, of course.
Yeah, I just wonder how the employees would feel about it.
Well, they can still take off
They can
Good
still
Friday.
take-
Yeah, I know, but maybe a lot of them would rather, well, they can take it, doesn't matter what they're about.
Yeah.
Let us ask two employees that are present. Ladies, how do you feel about having a floating holiday in lieu of Good Friday?
I think it's all right.
Chances are they're gonna always take Good Friday.
Yeah,
so
I mean-
It doesn't matter.
Still use it on that day.
Yeah, you can still use it for Good Friday.
Yeah,
To move around.
yeah, you could move it around.
But just keep track of those who use it as a floating holiday.
It's,
And then
yes,
don't try to use a floating holiday,
Yeah, so
some of
we
them.
want also.
It's really
Oh, no,
nice.
I took Good Friday.
Right?
Yeah.
it's really nice in our accounting software, or the payroll software, I put all of the holidays, like the total number of holidays in there. And I told the guys I need them to write down, their holiday hours so that I keep track of all of that on there.
Well, then if it's
Payroll
easier
as well.
for you, then we should stay the same.
Yeah, no, it's easy to track it on the,
Well, then we should
Right.
stay the same.
great.
You just load that field with the prescribed number of hours.
And then deduct as the year goes on.
That goes on.
So the rest of that is straightforward. Full-time employees is defined as 40 hours per week. I think we can get through vacation leave.
Maybe.
No,
That's a
okay.
nightmare.
So, going to allowance monthly accrual, employees so this was adjusted. Employees who enter village service on or after the effective date of this employee handbook shall accumulate vacation credits at a rate of 0.83 days per month for the first 12 months. Thereafter, each employee shall earn and accumulate vacation credits at a rate of 1 day per month. Vacation leave will be credited on the last day of each month.
Okay. So after 8 years, they have 20 days.
Correct.
They get 8 days. The question would be, for new employees hired after this handbook, is to give them only 15 days. Everyone that I know has been cutting vacation time in order to save money. So that's just an idea, and I just wanted to offer it. Wouldn't affect any current employees whatsoever. It would only affect new employees, and there'd be a new table for the new employees. with a
How many
start date
days?
of 15 days.
For the first year?
No.
No,
for
no,
after
okay,
8
for-
years.
For maximum.
Maximum.
Maximum, you're saying
Instead
for
of 20,
maximum.
15
Right.
maximum.
Oh, 50.
Right,
And then they could still accrue 240 hours, just like the employees do, but we're actually taking those 5 days away from brand new employees.
right, and they would be using the accrued time to make up the difference if they so choose.
Yeah, well,
Right,
whatever they
right,
accrued.
right.
But at the end of the 8th year, they would have, the new employee would have 15 instead of 20.
Instead of 20.
I mean, just a suggestion. I mean, it's gonna cost more and more
But
if
I
we
wanna
look at
go back
this sick
to,
leave.
I wanna go back to Jeanette's remark about employees leaving the village to go to other places because the conditions were better. So I'm hesitant to start cutting back benefits if we're trying to keep people
It's an
here.
incentive to keep somebody here.
Fine.
Yes,
Okay.
well.
I mean, we don't have anything in here how to get rid of anybody.
No, we haven't gotten to that point yet, no. But no, I agree, it's
I just
incentive,
only-
we live in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, but we
And-
also have to look,
yes.
once we get to sick leave,
Yeah.
there's another question, because they actually get very good
Right.
benefits, way above.
And there are,
even what I
yes,
got.
yes, and there,
I worked
You're
hard.
working for a profit-making organization.
Well,
yes, and I have questions about the sick leave as well. One change, one proposed change is under new employees. New hires may redeem vacation credits after a 6-month probationary period of continuous service has been successfully completed.
Next.
It's under the table?
Yes.
Under the table, it says new employees
Oh,
in
yeah.
bold. So this would be able to redeem vacation credits after 6 months rather than waiting a full year.
That's fine.
I personally am in favor of that. And they would only be able to use their 6 months, their few days, but at least it's something.
Right, yeah.
I love vacation. Okay, so now that I pay myself, not so much, but okay. So, continuous service is straightforward, scheduling, holiday, the rest of that is fine. Do you feel up to finishing sick time?
Sure.
Okay, good. All right, power through. Eligibility, no change there. Allowance, no change there. No change. All right, we're done. We've gone all the way up to personal leave.
Well, no, sick leave, accumulation of.
Oh, yes, sorry.
20 hours or 90 days,
Sorry, where is that?
8.3.
Holy cow.
Under accumulation.
8.3 accumulation,
Kinda out of control.
8.3.
Full-time employee may accumulate sick leave credits to a max.
Oh, yeah.
The
Yes.
hourly equivalent of 90 days.
90 days.
Yes, so that's what's in here. So,
Plus vacation, plus personal leave.
So is there a definition of accumulation as to?
Yeah, it's what you can accumulate over
In a
the
year.
life.
Over
It
your
doesn't
life-
say
over your
over the life of the
lifetime.
contract, so
Of the
if I'm an employee, and I have 90 days sick leave at the end, and I'm retiring,
You can
do
take
you know
that,
what 90 days of pay
You don't
is?
have to pay for it.
no, but
That's
we
not
don't
what it
pay
says.
out.
no.
I
Yeah.
don't know that.
We
I
don't-
didn't see that.
No payout.
There's no payout, although it's not specifically stated.
Yeah, but he could take 90 days of sick leave and you're still paying.
Well, sometimes what happens,
Yeah.
you know when they take it is when they wanna retire.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm
Right,
saying.
right.
So that way you get a lot of people will take off months and months before they retire.
I understand
I'm
that.
not saying
If
it's
you-
away from any employee, but I'm saying new employees.
They
should be
retire
reduced to
October 1st instead of
240 hours
January
and 30
Right.
days.
But
Okay?
they're
In
entitled to
order-
get paid for those days, right?
Yeah, they can
Aren't
get
they?
paid,
Yeah.
well, technically, you can
Right.
take 90 days off,
That's right.
okay?
Yeah,
You have to have
with
a doctor's note, Roger.
With a
Lorraine's
doctor's
form,
note,
Right,
what they
right,
do
right.
and how they get around the doctor's note,
Right.
I know all that.
Yeah.
New employees should be reduced to 240 hours and 30 days maximum, okay?
Is
This
that 240 hours?
Yeah,
Yeah.
or 30 days.
Yeah.
Because this is, I mean, you're paying him, if he's gonna
If
sit
you
for
wanted to
90
retire on
days, you're gonna
January
pay him
1st, you
one way or the other.
You could
could
still have,
retire on October 1st.
But how long did it take you to accumulate those, how many years
But you
did it
cannot, you,
take you to accumulate 90 days?
So you-
How long did it take
We
you?
were.
You accumulate 8 hours every month for sick
did
time.
you put
Hours.
provision in there?
Yes,
not
one
to
day
use
every
as
month.
vacation time?
Every day?
oh, you
Every
have
month from the
to,
time you start.
you are
96
required,
That's 12 a year.
so you get 12 sick days a year, that's how fast you can accumulate. In addition to that, you can only
It's
take,
9 years.
It's 96 hours.
in addition, notification of sick leave, you have to have a doctor's note for anything over 3 days.
Right.
But
But there are
Yes.
doctors who will write
write you a
notes.
note for anything.
Oh, yeah, right.
I would be in agreement with Mark Doniker to cap it off at 240 and not pay it off. But I would definitely leave it at 240 because it works as a short-term disability
Yeah.
plan.
It's just, I mean, when I saw this.
But
720
720 is-
hours, 90 days, it was like, what? For a small village, it's.
Yes.
Yeah,
So I
but
don't know
some,
what,
some places
720
allow
divided by
you
96,
to pay.
What's 720
to use
divided
that
by-
as-
That'd be
what's the
another-
96?
isn't it?
What's
But,
the 96?
Wait, can we have one conversation? Okay, so math problem with
Yeah.
Mark and Karen.
Yeah.
So what was
They're
your,
accumulating 96 hours per year?
they're
12
8
accumulating
hours.
12 times 8.
Yes.
12 days.
96 hours per year?
96 hours per year.
So if you
So
take
what's-
the 720 divided by 96, that'll tell you how many years of service to reach the max.
Like 7 years.
7 years.
7 years.
Okay?
That's what I was wondering, how long.
And there are people who have maxed out because they don't take sick time.
But waiting for the right time to take sick time.
Correct.
Would be when they retire.
So we need to encourage people to take sick time when they're sick
Right.
and when they use it as short-term disability. And then they do have the option to have comp time
Yeah.
to add
So
to
you're giving
that.
them you can give them comp time, overtime, you're giving them 5 personal days, you're giving them 20
Do,
vacation days.
Our, excuse
and
me,
it-
are hourly people,
Eligible
for
for sick?
part-time,
No,
No,
just salary?
only full-time.
no, salary's not.
Opposite.
Only
hourly.
full-time people who are paid hourly.
They
Hourly,
get comp time?
Yeah.
yes.
It's
Correct.
Salaried are not.
Salaried people do not get.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have to take, you can take overtime at time and a half, if you don't, you have the option of taking
Yeah.
comp time at time and a half.
That's new because,
Oh, it's been a long time.
well, I've been out of work a long
No,
time.
I-
We were never allowed.
No.
Anywhere I
Well,
worked,
salaried people, you can adjust their time, so for example, if you work 5 hours extra one day, they can take those 5 hours over that
Oh, I
paid
know.
period and over that month, but they don't bank it.
Yeah.
They don't accumulate it.
effective
They
of
can
this
also hire you for
handbook-
40 hours and work you 60.
Yeah, I've been there too.
So
Yes, I've
effective
done
this
that.
handbook, we would reduce it to 240 total or 30 days.
Yeah,
You can
so,
accumulate.
so I would make a motion that we cap it at 30 days or 240 hours. Anyone like to second that?
That's a big height, that's a big difference.
Yeah, it's the taxpayers' money, and that,
Yep.
to me, is some big benefit with all the other things that they're getting. You know, somebody has to pay for that, and every business I know is cutting.
Yeah, this is really exorbitant, the 720
Vacation,
hours.
I mean, for being in the city of New York, they're cutting for all new employees, vacation time, salaries, sick leave, number of holidays, because you can't keep this up, because sooner or
You
later.
know, they were also going to part-time employees as
Correct.
opposed to full-time, so
Right,
then you don't get
exactly.
any
Correct.
So you don't get any benefits at all.
And in addition to this, employees do have an opportunity to do long-term disability that would kick in after 30 days.
And it's not much. I mean,
No,
we
it's
could
not very
offer something
expensive.
like that too, that we
So
monitor.
village have a long-term disability plan?
We do not, but they have an opportunity to sign up with it through AFLAC.
Yeah.
I know that where I worked, I had to pay for long-term disability. So I had short-term disability, but this 30 days covers that short-term
Yeah,
disability.
I had I had my sick leave plus I had a policy on
Do we
my
have a
own
group life?
for a longer period.
So a motion is on the table to cap this at 30 days or 240 hours for, sick-
Anybody hired after,
This-
as of the new,
right.
One is after the date of the adoption of this.
Yes.
of new handbook. Correct. Do I have a second?
Did I, who did the, I made the motion?
I'll second. Oh, I can't second. Who makes them?
second
Okay, so Mark Doniker and Letty, all in
I
favor?
guess you know better than I do. Oh,
Aye. All opposed?
Didn't work in that kind of an environment, so I just got paid no matter
So
what.
we're done?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, so we will go to medical insurance as our next point. Yes,
There, I also saw there was, one thing I questioned, performance evaluation for new employees.
Yes.
Because it talks about completing the performance.
60 days.
60 days. Should we have a performance evaluation for those employees in order for the supervisor to document their performance during that period of time? So-
I would suggest that.
Well,
Wait,
it's a good suggestion,
Could you just back up and tell me where you were?
and it's
Sorry.
not,
I lost track of
it's
where
very
you were. I'm
difficult.
sorry.
We're at medical,
It's very difficult.
for personal leave, I think, right after personal leave is medical.
Right
leave.
after personal leave. Next
Should
page.
say medical.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm sorry.
It's not for new employees that work there, I mean, it's just a tool for supervisors to monitor behavior and ensure the employee keeps progressing at his job.
Wait, the village?
But I would just think, right, because they're so small,
I think I would rather it be a performance evaluation as opposed to.
well, that's what it'd be,
Yeah, it's a
Yeah, I know.
for new employees only,
Okay, all right.
yeah.
Because we found, when we tried this a while back, it was very difficult in the situation that we're in with who the supervisors were and who the employees were, and it was,
Because chances are they're probably related.
well, that, I know.
No, and I don't say that
No,
in
no,
a
no.
derogatory way at all, but.
It's the
They probably
nature
are.
of the situation,
If you-
okay?
if the
And you may have to
supervisor-
make some allowances for that.
If the supervisor decides that he doesn't want more on that performance evaluation, go back, in case you get sued,
Right.
you have documentation
I know,
on their
I know.
performance, so just new
Yeah.
employees. So I'll put together a performance evaluation.
Okay.
Okay.
But there has, I think the key word there was documentation of each situation.
Yes.
Because someone might not like somebody, but yet they're performing well, and yet that department head could really screw them over because
Well,
they're dating my sister and I don't like them, or they're, you know what I mean?
Well, I think in the handbook it tells you
It puts
you
a
can't.
subjectivity.
Yeah, you can't do that.
Can't supervise any relative of his.
Right.
So I hopefully that takes it out.
You can't supervise any relative.
No, if it's a relative,
You have
I'm
to,
telling you, that's your handbook.
you have to delegate that to somebody else.
Yes.
Right.
You don't want that?
No. Okay, so we will take this up again at section 8.5. So moving right along,
Here.
there is the roundtable with the NBRC grant application, so that's the Northern Borders grant. I did speak with Rich Grogan, the executive director, asking him to review our prior grants so that we can make informed decisions going forward and increase our chance of getting a grant. So at this state, I did get another late communication at the end that requires us to go into executive session for no more than 5 minutes. 10 at the most.
Go into executive session.
Second, 5 minutes.
Okay. Letty, Karen. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay. So the public meeting is now suspended for executive session.
You gotta take that, Gary.